Wild animals, powerful, majestic, and a little bit scary. We see them on television, in zoos, and sometimes even in our backyards. Their untamed nature fascinates us. We wonder, could we ever befriend such creatures? Could we bridge the gap between our worlds? The thought is tempting. Imagine a world where lion and human live in harmony. But taming wild animals is a complex issue. It's not as simple as holding out your hand and hoping for a paw in return. These animals have instincts honed over thousands of years. Their survival depends on these instincts, on their ability to hunt, to protect themselves, to live free from human interference. So while the idea of taming a wild animal might seem exciting, it's important to remember the responsibility involved. We must ask ourselves, is it right to try and change the very essence of what makes these animals wild? Is it safe for both humans and the animals themselves? Let's delve deeper into the world of animal taming and explore the answers to these questions. Taming, at its core, is about building trust and understanding between humans and animals. It's a long process, often spanning generations. Some animals, like dogs and cats, have been domesticated over thousands of years. They've adapted to live alongside humans. But what about wild animals? Can they truly be tamed? The answer, like most things in nature, is not a simple yes or no. Some species are more readily tamed than others. Animals with social structures like wolves or elephants might be more receptive to human interaction. They're used to hierarchy and communication within their groups. However, even within a species, there are variations. A wolf raised in captivity from a young age might exhibit dog-like behaviors. It might even seek out human companionship. But a wild wolf with no prior human contact would likely react with fear or aggression. Taming, therefore, isn't about turning a wild animal into a pet. It's about building a relationship, however tenuous, based on respect and understanding. It's about recognizing the animal's wild instincts while finding ways to coexist safely. The ethics of taming wild animals is a topic of much debate. On one hand, we have the animal's welfare to consider. Is it fair to take an animal from its natural environment and confine it? Is it right to expect it to suppress its natural instincts for our benefit? Opponents of taming argue that it robs animals of their freedom and dignity. Confining wild animals, they say, can lead to stress, behavioral problems, and even physical harm. Forcing them to interact with humans can disrupt their social structures and natural rhythms. On the other hand, proponents argue that responsible taming can benefit both animals and humans. They point to conservation efforts where tamed animals act as ambassadors for their species, helping to educate the public and raise awareness about conservation issues. In some cases, taming might be the only way to protect endangered animals from poachers or habitat loss. The key, it seems, lies in finding a balance. Taming should never be about dominance or exploitation. It should be about respecting the animal's needs and ensuring its well-being. While the ethics of taming are important, we cannot ignore the safety aspect. Wild animals, no matter how tame they seem, are unpredictable. They retain their wild instincts, and these instincts can resurface without warning. A seemingly friendly animal can lash out, causing serious harm. This risk is not only present for humans, but also for the animals themselves. An animal that becomes too accustomed to humans might not fare well if released back into the wild. It might not possess the necessary skills to survive, or might even approach humans, expecting food or interaction, only to be met with fear and aggression. Therefore, safety should be paramount in any interaction with wild animals. Clear boundaries must be established and precautions taken to minimize the risk of harm to both humans and animals. It's crucial to remember that taming does not eliminate an animal's inherent wild nature. It merely creates a fragile truce, one that can be broken in an instant. Section 5. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Taming attempts through history. Humans have been fascinated by wild animals since the dawn of time. Our ancestors lived alongside these creatures, both fearing and revering them. This fascination often led to attempts to tame and control these wild spirits. History is rife with examples of animal taming, some successful, others ending in tragedy. The ancient Egyptians, for instance, revered cats, believing them to be guardians of the home and protectors from evil spirits. They even worshipped a cat goddess, Bastet. The Romans, known for their grand spectacles, often used animals in their arenas. Lions, tigers, elephants, and even bears were captured from the wild and trained to perform for the crowds. These animals were often treated cruelly, subjected to harsh training methods and forced to fight each other or human gladiators. These historical examples highlight the complex relationship between humans and wild animals. They show both our capacity for compassion and our tendency towards exploitation. They serve as a reminder that our interactions with wild animals must be approached with caution and respect. Section 6. Modern-day examples, from wolves to whales. In modern times, we see a shift in our approach to wild animals. While entertainment and exploitation still exist, there's a growing emphasis on conservation and understanding. Many zoos and animal sanctuaries now focus on providing enriching environments for their animals, mimicking their natural habitats as closely as possible. One example of this shift is the work being done with wolves. Once feared and hunted, wolves are now recognized for their crucial role in maintaining healthy ecosystems. Organizations like the Wolf Conservation Center in New York work to dispel myths about wolves and promote their conservation through education and research. Another inspiring example is the relationship between humans and whales, particularly orcas. Once hunted for their blubber and meat, orcas are now recognized for their intelligence and complex social structures. Organizations like the Whale Sanctuary Project work to create safe havens for captive orcas, allowing them to live out their days in a more natural environment. These examples show that a more harmonious relationship between humans and wild animals is possible. It requires a shift in perspective, from viewing these creatures as commodities to be exploited to recognizing them as sentient beings, deserving of our respect and protection. Section 7. The conservation conundrum, taming for the greater good. The issue of taming becomes even more complicated when we consider conservation efforts. With many species facing extinction due to habitat loss, poaching, and climate change, some argue that taming might be a necessary tool for survival. In some cases, captive breeding programs rely on tamed animals to help increase dwindling populations. These programs often involve hand-rearing animals from a young age to ensure their survival and to acclimate them to human presence. The hope is that these animals can eventually be reintroduced into the wild, bolstering wild populations. However, this approach is not without its critics. Some argue that captive breeding programs, even with the best intentions, can never replicate the complexities of the wild. They argue that resources would be better spent on protecting existing wild populations and their habitats. The debate over taming for conservation highlights the difficult choices we face in a world where human actions have such a profound impact on the natural world. It forces us to ask ourselves how far we're willing to go to protect endangered species and whether taming, even for the greater good, might ultimately do more harm than good. Section 8. Finding a balance, respecting the wild in animals. As we've seen, the question of whether we tame wild animals is complex, but perhaps a more important question is we. Taming, at its best, should be about building a bridge of understanding between humans and the wild. It should be about appreciating the unique qualities of each species, even the ones that make them dangerous. This means recognizing that true respect for wild animals might mean keeping our distance. It might mean admiring their beauty and power from afar, allowing them to live their lives free from human interference. It might mean focusing our efforts on protecting their habitats and ensuring their survival for generations to come. Section 9. The untamed spirit, a final thought. The allure of the wild is undeniable. It speaks to something deep within us, a yearning for connection with the natural world. But while we might be tempted to tame and control that which is wild, perhaps the greatest lesson we can learn is to appreciate it for what it is: untamed, unpredictable, and utterly magnificent.